Hello, Bill.
Hi.
Thanks for joining us this evening. I know both of us had wondered whether we would proceed tonight, but I want to thank all of our viewers for all the kind and loving thoughts going out to the families affected by the tragedy that has happened in Nova Scotia today. And thank you for taking a moment of silence with us to respect that, what's happened. As difficult as it is, we're going to proceed with a show that we hope brings you a moment of happiness, despite what we're going through. And Bill actually has worked for years with government agencies, the RCMP, so he has a very close endearment, I would say, Bill, to that environment. And so I'd like to bring you on and kick off our show here with lots of love and thoughts going out to the families all throughout Nova Scotia today. Take it away, Bill.
All right. Well, our hearts and prayers go out to all those that are affected by the senseless violence today in Nova Scotia. I hope everybody takes time to reflect of how we all need each other to help everyone through all their troubles. And I guess on the aspect of continuing on with some doggy stuff is, some people have children, some people have pets. And if we're feeling down because of what's happened, they sense something. And so with the children and with the pets, we almost have to hide it to make it seem like we're being normal in this less than normal life that we're going through right now. So anyway, we had talked about what we're going to do today. And it's all based on building up your pet's confidence, as we've said before, as a review, and then developing controls. Without the confidence, there's no need for the controls because the dog is too scared or too nervous to do anything. So we build up their confidence and we do their controls. And to do that, we use three things. We use food. And so if you have a high value food at the time, which in this case, I'm using little pieces of hot dogs, but they can be little tiny treats, but they're very, very small. They're not big. And it doesn't matter whether you're using a big German Shepherd or you're using a little Chihuahua. They're small treats. And we can also use pieces of cheese. But what it is it's high value. So that becomes what a lot of people think is a positive reinforcement. But it's also used negatively. If the dog wants it, then can't have it, then it's a negative reinforcement. In other words, I don't like that, so that's negative. I would rather have it, so I want to get it. And if you show them how they can get it, and they do that behavior, and then give it to them, that food that was negative now becomes positive. So we're using food to create a negative experience so that we can change it into a positive experience. So we had talked about some things about doing, for instance, a sit behavior. So if we take the food, and I got Annie back here, and we hold it above her head, that becomes a negative, and so she'll do whatever she's been taught to make it positive. But she's learned that. So if you see Annie's on a table, and it's really good to use a table to teach behaviors, because if I take this food and I make it negative by putting it down between her front legs, then she lays down, and then I release it, and it becomes positive. And if I hold it above her head until she puts her leg, sits up straight, then it becomes positive when she's up there. So I can put a word to that and say, pretty, 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 pretty. So I am creating with food using a negative, down, and using a negative, sit. When I say the word sit, it's after the behavior. When I say the word down, it's after the behavior, because we want the dog to know what that word is. Sit. Down. And using a table keeps the dog from crawling towards you, moving backwards, and focuses on what it's supposed to do. So if I take Annie out of the equation and bring in Foxy, come on, Annie. And we do the same thing with Foxy. We hold it away, and we got sit. She thinks she's there. Now watch.
Stay.
Sit. So Foxy thought that the down would do the behavior, would get the food, become positive, but it didn't. They still withheld it. Until I get what I want. And then it becomes a sit. Sit. Now if I hold that between her front paws, his front paws, until he lays down, sit, down. Sit. And this builds habits in the dog. So if you had your dog's daily food and a quarter of the cup or a quarter of its rations was used for doing behaviors like this, then the dog would learn those habits. Sit. Down. Okay, now if I take my hand and I move it around the dog's neck, it will cause a negative because the dog wants the food, and it's negative because it can't get it, and it twists its neck to try and get it. Watch. Here, and I put it around the neck. The head will turn towards it here. Down. Side. Side. Okay? So I wouldn't do this on the table because I don't want him to fall off the table. So watch when I drop this a little bit lower. I think, can you still see me here? No, we'll have to tip it up a little.
I will.
Let's be tipped down. More. There we go. So watch. Sit. Down. Around the neck. Side. Now if I take it further, around the neck. Over. So I helped with the hand to create the behavior. Come. Sit. Down. Side. Over. And the sound and the food come at the last minute. So, to create those behaviors, and you should practice these things with your dog every feeding. If I hold the dog here and I don't pet it, that's negative touch. The dog doesn't like that. It goes into a position that you put it in, and then you go to positive touch, which is staccato. So when it's positive and it's in that position, you could be saying sit, sit. Now when it moves, back into negative and into positive. Back into negative and into positive. Back into negative. Sit, sit. Back into negative. Sit, sit. Back into negative. Sit, sit. So if I wanted to teach this dog to go from a sit to a stand, I would put negative touch underneath its belly, lift it up, and say stand. Lift it up and say stand. And lift it up and say stand. If at the same time I decided to use food, then I would have the food placed out here, which I'll show you. Here. Now the dog wants the food. Here. Stand. Take the treat. Stand. Stand. Take the treat. Stand. 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 If I put steady pressure into the dog's back end, I will get sit, and the food goes in and the touch goes in. So now I have stand, stand, and I have sit, sit, and I have down, down, and petting. So now I have sit, down, stand, and I can go into those different mixes. So from a down, I take the food, I use it negatively. Sit, good dog, good dog. I take the food, I use it negatively. Down, good dog. I take the food and I use it negatively to bring them into a sit. Now I take it away from it. Lift up on the rear end. Stand. And the words become learned. So you should take your dog and you should practice with it a lot. Every feeding, at least a quarter of its bowl of food. If I wanted to take this dog to sit pretty, then I would, as you saw Annie doing, because she's learned it, up here, sit, now higher. Now lift. Pretty, pretty, pretty. Pretty, pretty, pretty. So, I don't know whether you can see that. Let's see. I lift the paws up, and I put the food in my hand, and I say, pray, pray. I think we have to get farther away.
I think you're too close.
And turn it this way. There, there. Lifting it up. Pray. 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 Sit. Down. Good pup. Good pup. So this becomes positive reinforcement, which is positive touch, which is staccato. This is negative, which it doesn't like. Then it goes positive. And the food is positive when it receives it, and it's negative when you withhold it. And it's negative when you withhold it, and it's positive when it receives it. Sound is positive when you give it out. Sit, sit, sit. Down, down, down. Sit, sit, sit. Down, down, down. But you would not give a mixture of positives and negatives at the same time. So that means you shouldn't be doing this if you want to sit. This is negative. This is negative. So you wouldn't be saying, holding this up and saying, sit, 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 sit. Now you would say sit. So you don't say anything until you create the behavior. Down. Try not to say anything until you create the behavior. Sit. Good dog. Good pup. I don't know if that was clear enough or not, but are there any questions so far?
We can see you good. My microphone is a little scratchy, so I'm going to let you kind of lead the show here.
I'm going to put the table back. So you can use it.
So, did you say there are questions or not? All right. I don't hear any sound, but let me show you a different one.
Yeah, there's no questions yet, Bill. Keep going.
Okay. So let me show you a different one. If you wanted to teach your dog to shake a paw, then you would have to have the sit first, and then you would pick the paw up after you offered it the treat.
Just move your camera over, Bill, because we can't see the dogs.
No, that way.
No, I see the angle on mine.
Okay. That's the back.
Move the dog that way a bit.
Okay.
There you go. Because they're not only seeing how.
I'd rather. Okay.
Okay.
Sit. Okay. So if you use the food negatively to create the sit, and then before you do this, you pick up the paw and you offer the food. And you say shake, 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 shake. Good dog. You do it again. Shake, 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 shake. Again. Shake, 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 shake. Again. Shake, shake, shake. Good dog. Shake. When the dog learns that behavior, after you put him into a sit, and then you touch the paw, and the paw lifts up, and you say shake, and give him the food, eventually, usually about 3 days, the dog will learn that behavior. And if you've always said shake left, then that dog will lift up that paw. If you do the other one and you say shake right, then the dog will lift up that paw. When I want the dog to lay on its side, I take the food and I twist the dog's neck by the negative action of the food. Here. Okay, so when you take the food around the neck here, you're bringing the neck around and the dog is leaning forward, leaning for it, and will eventually roll over on its side. If the dog doesn't roll over, then it's because it's nervous to do that. So I would move the dog onto a, there we go. Side. Good dog. Good dog. Okay. So it's all about building up the dog's confidence, then it's control. So let's try for Annie for a second. Annie, come. With Annie, of course, she's had a couple of years of training, and if I put my arm out, because I've already swept my arm around, that she learns to put her paws up in my arm. And when it's up in my arm, then I reward her with her food. So she's learning to sit on her rear end, her two back legs, and using her tail as a third back leg to sit in a triangle to be able to get her balance. Like that. Like somebody would do in yoga. Now, if I put my arm out and she learned it, okay, right. And there. And if I take the food underneath my arm, then she puts her head down here, which becomes pray, 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 pray. We do that to develop the dog's confidence. If I wanted her to sit up straight and I was using my hands, then I would put her rear end down and lift her body up and say, pray, sit, pretty, 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 and they learn to do their balance. Come on. So There are three things that are basics in my training, or in basic training, and that are food, which is positive only if the dog wants it. So if the dog had just had a big meal and then you wanted to teach it some behaviors, then the food wouldn't be as positive as if it was hungry. So the best time to do some behaviors is just before you feed it or while you're feeding the dog. The time factor that you train with is so much faster in a dog than it is in a human. When you've spent 5 minutes of your time with a puppy, that puppy has spent 30 minutes to 40 minutes of its time with you because it lives its life a lot faster. Okay? Now, if we're teaching confidence, and we should, as a trainer, you look for things that make the dog not confident. Maybe the dog doesn't dare crawl underneath anything. Maybe the dog is nervous about going in a small hole. Maybe, maybe not. But you as a trainer should test for that. So if I take this type of table and I take a piece of food, which is positive and negative, and I put it underneath there, she goes around, but I want her to go through it, underneath it. So here, crawl, crawl, crawl. So I used food because she wanted it, most labs do, and I held it negatively underneath the table so that she would crawl underneath for it. Crawl, 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 crawl. Good dog. If I do it one way and then try it the other way, you may not get the same results. Because the dog learns one way. Crawl, crawl, crawl. Good dog. But that's building up the dog's confidence. The smaller the hole, the more confidence it needs. If you have a culvert in your backyard and it's an opening that the dog could crawl into, then it helps your dog to develop the confidence so that you can get it to crawl into smaller holes, to climb a tree, to scramble up a wall. Anything like that builds confidence. In a house, I have a small table. I work my dog on the table. I have other little footstools that I'll buy at the dollar store. I have parts of furniture. And then I would use my food treats and bring the dog up. Up. Sit. Good dog. And if she's learned other behaviors, pray. Putting them all together. When you put multiple behaviors together, it's in training that's called chaining. You're putting links together and making series. So if I took Foxy, just a second, come in. And I take my treats to be used negatively. Closer to the dog. Good dog. So I make a little obstacle course in the house. And obviously, if the COVID was over, then I'd be doing these obstacle courses outside. And as a trainer, I see obstacles all the time when I'm walking with my dog. There might be a big rock. There might be 5 or 6 rocks that I want the dog to go and get on to clamber over. If it's a puppy, it might be a small log or bushes that I want the dog to go through. Anything that you can do that you can build the dog's confidence up is going to increase the learnability of the dog. And as you do that, you have to start to do controls. In other words, you don't let the dog do it unless you tell it to do it or ask it to do it. Even an example. Could I have the loop? Okay. You can get these at the dollar store, and this builds confidence. So what I'd like the dog to do is to jump through my arms or jump through a hoop. When I first brought this hoop out, the dog looked at it and went, huh, what is that? And would run around it and run around it and run around it. Well, using food and the dog wanting the food, I would lure the dog through the hoop. And it didn't have to be high, just through the hoop. And the dog is now going through a hoop and is seeing this in its peripheral vision and seeing that it doesn't cause it any harm. It's not scared of it. And so it goes through it. Now, dog A might have had all the confidence and gone through it, while dog B was a little bit more nervous. But even if you're raising children, child A might be more confident than child B. So here and here. Hup. And I call that a word, and in this case, I'm using the word hup, H-U-P. It can be anything you want, jump, whatever. Hup. Good dog. And you look at that and say, wow, didn't that dog jump through that hoop really nice? And you're another one to look at it and say, well, the dog was scared to even go through it. But you're building the dog's confidence. And you're teaching the dog.
Bill, just move your camera a little bit.
How about there, Rebecca?
Yep, perfect.
You good?
Yep.
So even a step through is a plus. It's a learning. And as that gets better and better, you'll be able to put it higher and higher. Until the dog realizes that this is not scary. This actually is associated with something that he wants. So if I move it out of the way, come Fox. I'll do it.
Check the camera.
Well, they can see me now. Just now. Good dog. Come.
Can you see that, Rebecca?
I sure can. Yep.
Perfect.
Up. 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 Good dog. Up. Up. Good dog. Up. Up. So that builds up the dog's confidence. Later on, I'll do it this way, and the dog will jump through it because it's the hoop. But later on, after he does that, I'll take that out and do this, and the dog will jump through my arms. Building up the dog's confidence is the main thing that a trainer must do. And a trainer that can see the dog is nervous about something, and then instead of avoiding it, develops the dog's confidence around it. You know, a lot of people don't expose their dogs to loud noises because it scares them. And so they see the dog run away from the vacuum cleaner. And they think, well, that's good. The dog doesn't get in the way when I vacuum. Or they have to put the dog someplace else because he's biting at the vacuum cleaner. But as a trainer, you look at that and say, the reason why he's biting at it or running from it is because he's scared of it. And he thinks that's solving his problem. And if when he's running from it or he's biting it, the owner is saying, it's okay, Fluffy, it's all right, it's only a vacuum, then they are rewarding the dog for doing what he's doing. They might as well give him a cookie. So then they wonder why on Canada Days, when they light off the fireworks, that their dog is terrified and runs to hide, or it runs away and they're looking for it for 3 days. They have created that themselves. So, but it's because they didn't know. So I would bring my vacuum cleaner out and I would introduce it to the dog. And if the vacuum cleaner was very, very noisy and scary for the dog, I would start with my hair dryer or my wife or Claire's hair dryer. And I would make it so the dog would have to sit on the table while I used it on myself. And so the dog would see me doing it. But then I would take a moment in time and do it across the dog. And then go back to me before he got scared and ran away. Until I could build up the confidence in the dog that I could have him sit there and blow dry him with a hairdryer. Once that's done, then I want to expand it to the shop vac, which is down in the garage. And I want to put the hose on the blower side because he's used to that. And I want to do the same thing there. But because of what I did with the hairdryer, it's going to be easier for me to do it with the shop vac. I just happen to have a motorcycle in my garage. If I start that motorcycle, I know this guy would run away. I know Annie would go over towards the motorcycle looking for a treat. But if I kept Foxy on a leash, when he was hungry and went down and started the motorcycle and offered him a treat, he would associate the sound of that with something positive and now become attuned or not scared by the sounds. So I had a gentleman call me, send me a video, and he said he's had dogs all his life, but this Rottweiler that he has tries to attack the cars when he goes by on the road, when he walks on the road. It lunges at them, it barks at them, every car. And then I said, tell me more about it. He said, well, especially the trucks, especially the bulldozers. So that tells me the dog is scared of sounds and has learned because it's scared and barking that that truck goes away. It drives right by and keeps on going. And if the person walking the dog when that happens is saying, it's okay, Rocky, it's all right, it's just a truck, then you're rewarding Rocky for barking at the truck. So to that answer of that was to teach him sit down and stay, which he did. And then I asked him to go practice that at the local truck stop. So he went and he practiced at the local truck stop, and there were trucks coming in and coming out and gearing down and gearing up. And yes, he was nervous and Rocky was nervous, but they had him on a leash. And in 3 days, he just excitedly went to the truck stop to get his treats and was not attuned to the sounds of the trucks at all. And lo and behold, his walks along the road became not a problem anymore because he wasn't scared of those trucks going by. Now that big, tough Rottweiler was scared of the sound. And yet maybe some other dog might not be scared of the sound and never have that effect. So Most people that have little dogs like this are nervous and scared. But when you're in a world of giants, then you might be nervous and scared too, until you're taught not to be scared. And then it learns the confidence, and then you can start developing controls. I don't know if that makes sense to everybody or not. I know it does to some of my students.
It does. Would that apply to, Bill, to my girlfriend has a dog that loses its mind when the mailman comes, only when the mailman comes. So is he excited or is he scared of something?
Well, he probably originally was scared, only with the mailman, not anybody else.
Nobody else, just the mailman.
Well, then I would probably ask the mailman, or see the mailman coming, and ask him to give him a treat in his hand and ask him to drop it down for the dog.
Okay. And
then ask him to do it the next time, and ask him to do it the next time. And after 3 or 4 times of the mailman dropping the treat down, that dog probably would be all wagging its tail waiting for the mailman to come.
Okay.
I had been approached by Canada Post one time with that concept. And some people thought, well, yeah, that's fine. The dog's going to accept that mailman. But what happens if somebody else does the route and they don't have any treats?
Yeah.
Won't it attack them then?
Yeah.
I said, no, I don't think so. I think it might expect to get a treat. And if it doesn't get it, it's not going to go crazy. If you don't get the treat, you're going to think maybe the next one will have it, or the next one will have it.
Yeah.
So.
Good. I don't see any questions in the comments, Bill, but this has been such an informative one for me personally. Margie's doing more things with Gizmo. She says Margie was on last Sunday and she's starting to apply more things with Gizmo. Margie, maybe put in the comments what type of dog you have there, just for fun. We've got watchers. I want to acknowledge our viewers here that are tuning in from all over the place. Is my microphone really annoying? Is it loud?
It's clicking a lot, but I understand John and Jan Arnold are watching from down in Texas.
Yeah. Brendan Nicholson, Robert Mara. Yeah, we have so many people. Well, I won't keep you, Bill. I know it's a busy night for you, and I want to say thank you to you and Claire. And my microphone's acting up. Thank you so much for this tonight.
No problem, and God bless everybody. Stay safe in this crazy times we've had, and I feel bad. Everybody feels bad about what happened in Nova Scotia, but we've all got to stick together.
That's right. God bless. Have a lovely evening, you guys.
You too, Rebecca.
And this broadcast is officially over. This is Rebecca with Ripple Effects Canada with our Sunday Fun Day show with Bill and Claire Grimmer from New Brunswick. Thanks, guys.
Bye.